Hi, welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name is Robert Winters, and
I'm Susanna Sagat, and we have so much space between us.
I
don't know what to do with this.
It's like, well, there we go. We're fine, right? Just want to thank Brian Core, who's on to our first half hour today. And we've got a few things I want to do for the second half hour. I want to say a little bit of sort of a historical perspective, but before we go in that direction, Susanna's got a few things to say about politics.
Well, I just wanted to talk a little about the governor's race and about the caucuses.
Okay.
You know, we talked a long time ago about the Democratic caucuses that had to come up. The issue is that if you want to be on the ballot as a candidate in the Democratic Party, then there's all sorts of hurdles you have to run. So one of them is that to get on the ballot, you need 15% of the delegates at a convention to vote for you. If you don't get 15% on the first ballot, you don't get on the ballot at all. So
You got to organize to get
have
your 15%.
So to do that, you have to get the delegates to commit for you at a caucus in February and March. And my ward just had their caucuses this Saturday, and I'm glad we can talk about this for a minute because it was the most exciting thing that's happened in a long time. Ward 7.
All right, I'm 6.
And it was great because lately these caucuses, you know, if like 10 people come, you're lucky, and then you sort of try to beg people to become delegates and go to the convention so it's not embarrassing that no one from our ward comes. And this one, because we have Martha Coakley running, Grossman, KN, Berkwith, and Avalone.
All right.
We have 5 people running for the Democratic seat. They actually organized. And there were so many people it was standing room only. And they all competed against each other, and what was really interesting.
Was there a singing competition?
No singing, but they had speeches.
Oh.
And you know, in the polls, they say Martha Coakley is way ahead of the general election polling. And there were really well-respected people from the community who were Martha delegates, and there were really well-respected people from the community who were Grossman delegates. But they all organized against each other, and in my ward, the KN's caucus won.
Uh-huh.
So all of my delegates are going to be voting for her. But
There
it was
you go.
just great how many people showed up and that they were all lobbying for each other.
Like old-time politics.
Oh, it was great. And the other thing is, when we talked about this before, we mentioned that we didn't know what the Republicans were doing, and how embarrassing is that? And I did all sorts of research, but I couldn't find anything. Now, I think I know, and if there's any Republicans out there watching, tell me if I'm wrong. The Republican convention is going to be in Boston on March 22nd, coming up. And I think there's 2 people running for the Republican ballot, Mark Fisher and Charlie Baker. And my guess is that Charlie Baker is going to win that convention,
Hands
but
down,
we'll
right.
see. So March 22nd, we'll know. And then
Correct.
in June, we'll know the Democratic people who are on the ballot. And then if you want to just get on the ballot without the 15%, then you run as an independent. So that was really exciting news.
I think we still have one more caucus to go.
Which
So the
one is it?
Democrats is Ward 6.
Oh, you haven't done yours yet?
I think we're the last. And I think we do it next week. So now you've
Oh,
given me a
so
preview
exciting.
of what to expect.
It's really great.
All right. All right.
So back to real life.
Back to real life here. So I thought I was going to, my notion for this evening here was I wanted to just say a little bit of sort of a look back of sort of how we got from then to now. And I just want to say that my motivation.
And
about
what
this-
issue?
Well, the thing is, it's actually multiple issues, but they're kind of generally in an environmental theme. And this is in part motivated by the fact that Cambridge's recycling program actually has at least the beginnings of what became our curbside recycling program we have today, actually was initiated in April. It'll be 25 years. And I was there back in the early days, and I was on the recycling advisory committee until just a couple months ago, and we had sort of like a little sort of thank you ceremony as some of us who were leaving the committee were there, and I was speaking with the city manager, Rich Rossi, at the time. Richie was actually involved in working with us to actually get the whole thing established.
Mr. Manager to you.
Well, but the thing is, back then he was just the deputy city manager, and we have this sort of shared history. And the thing he said was really interesting is he said, and I'll sort of give the quote here. He just said, "It's incredible to think how far we've come from the days when we were just trying to get a recycling program off the ground to what we do today in Cambridge, in terms of environmental initiatives." And it's true. But nowadays, Cambridge is, at least in many people's eyes, is sort of viewed as sort of the envy of many municipality in terms of their focus on a lot of different environmental initiatives, transportation planning initiatives.
And we've gotten to the point that we take it for granted.
We really do, but it wasn't always that way. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the main thing I wanted to sort of mention here today. At the same time, I also wanted to kind of correct a little bit of mythology. There are a lot of people who, over the years, maybe just because it was convenient, would say, "Oh, yeah, that's Robert Winters. Oh, he's the guy that started the recycling program." And so part of what I'd like to do tonight is to sort of completely disabuse people of that notion.
I never knew that about you.
Good, because it's not true. But I think what it can be said is, of the people who were there at the beginning, I'm the one who lasted the longest. And so I became kind of identified with the early days of Cambridge Recycling. So what I want to do here, just to get things started here, and then we'll talk about a few other things depending on the time, is to just pay a little homage to some of the people who actually were involved in the early days 25 years ago.
I'm going to hum the background music.
Well, feel free to sort of jump right in here. And this includes some fake pictures, and I hope I don't embarrass too many people here.
Don't embarrass me.
It should be sort of on here. Now I got to sort of make sure we can master the technology. Are we on the old slow one here? So here we go. This is just some pictures here now of we're going to call this Cambridge Recycles the early days. Now I think I have to kind of figure out how to do the scrolling on this because it's contrary to the way I'm used to doing it.
Go right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, this way here. So all right, so just to get started here is that when we actually began the recycling program, well, let me just sort of say that even a generation earlier, waste management in Cambridge might have looked something like this image right here, which was what Danahy Park looked like before it was Danahy Park. Many people may remember sort of driving around there with just this mountain of trash, a sanitary landfill right there in a very significant, surrounded by a residential neighborhood of Cambridge. So this is an image I think we did at the 20th anniversary. I sort of plucked this image out of space there. But
Tell me when you want the next slide.
just in a second. But the thing is, we even during those days here, Cambridge actually had some early initiatives for what you might think of as recycling. Back in the days when they actually collected food waste. They used to call it the honey wagon. I didn't bring an image of it here, but where they would actually, many people now actually know there are there's a little bucket in the backyard still with a steel cap.
On the ground.
Many yards in Cambridge still have them there. They're little vestiges of another time when the guy in the honey wagon would come by. They call it the honey wagon because it reeked. And he'd pick out the garbage, the food waste from the backyard, haul it out, dump it in the garbage truck, put in another bucket in the backyard, swap them out. And, that was an early initiative that had been discontinued. I think it may have lasted until the 60s or something, but that was long gone. And
I always wondered what that was. Here's something you trip over now.
That's it, yeah. That was the garbage. That was for the garbage in the old days there, right? So, so anyway, that was, we'll sort of come back here for a little bit and then we'll go back to the images here. So back in the 1980s, I think it's probably fair to say that there wasn't much consciousness about recycling. When you talk about environmental things at the time, most people equated that with pollution. Air pollution, water pollution, whatever. They didn't really think about it in terms of necessarily waste management. But somehow, the cost of disposing was actually skyrocketing. You're going from, I think, $26 a ton to 90 something a ton.
For trash.
Just to get rid of the trash. And so it was sort of becoming a financial need. There were, the ability to open up new landfills or incinerators was becoming more and more difficult. So the state actually was taking some initiative to make some things happen to do this. So I think, and I may have some of the dates wrong a little bit about here, but somewhere in the vicinity of 1987 or 88, the state, the Department of Environmental Protection, actually drafted a plan for landfill bans to sort of restrict some of the materials that could go into landfills. And they even had a plan, and this is actually kind of where we sort of, Cambridge gets into it a little bit, for building 13, scattered around the state, 13 materials recovery facilities, better known as MRFs, together with vehicles that would collect recyclable materials from various communities. In truth, that plan for 13 was scaled back to 5, and eventually actually only 1 was ever built. You know, great plans made, but during that period when there was this possibility of all these materials recovery facilities being built, some of the local towns, because one of them was going to be built just north of Fresh Pond on Smith Place. So, you know, Cambridge sort of took note of this fact. Even Somerville did, and when they said the idea was, let's get an interim recycling drop-off program established so that we can get people ready for the big materials recovery facility that's going to be appearing down the street, which was never built. So that was kind of the incentive. It was a little bit accidental, but there were also some legitimate economic reasons for actually pursuing the idea. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that, you know, everybody thinks of Cambridge as very, very progressive, but Somerville beat us. Somerville actually started their program several months earlier, and when we first met, which I think was in about April of 1989, we actually had a representative from Somerville came by and kind of showed us the rope. That's Lisa Brucolaccio.
I'm not listening to that.
Okay, all right. I know. It's terrible news here, but it was advertised. There was a meeting here at Cambridge City Hall, and people just showed up because they had an interest in possibly getting a recycling program. There was no specific plans. The amazing thing is that so some 7 people showed up. I was one of the people that showed up, and I think it was actually at that I think it was the person who probably deserved more credit than anyone else for actually getting the ball rolling was a woman named Natalie Roy.
Oh,
So, did you know Natalie?
She's a good friend of mine.
Really? So and now I hope I didn't get that wrong, but I believe that Nat was the one who was.
She was.
She bet she was. That's good to know. But so a few of us got together, and I'm just going to give some of the names here, some of the principal names. There were others, I'm sure, but these are the ones who I remember. Were Vicky Casana, myself, Sumner Martinson, Annette French, Dan Newberry, Powell Woodward, Laurie Siegel, and others. And a person who was actually working out of the city manager's office, sort of as the executive assistant at the time, his name was Maura Smith, who later became the tourism director for Cambridge. I don't know what she's doing these days, but she actually came from the manager's office to sort of give us a hand. And the amazing thing is so there we were, you know, typical Cambridge's process. So you get together on an April meeting, you meet a following month, and then maybe, 7 months later you're going to do something? Well, we met the following month, and then we heard, I think we can get this started next month.
No, that's a tough group.
So we had 2 meetings, and then boom, you're going to be out there. So we had to sort of plan it all out, and we set up 2 sites, one in West Cambridge, one in East Cambridge, and we had to staff it.
Yeah, don't mess with that group.
It was an interesting group of people. Many of the people are still really good friends of mine to this day, but that was really how it started. And I wanted to actually just show a few pictures now.
Okay.
So let's see, so we can kind of fade back over here. So see, this is the next one down. This is a photo just of when we were advertising the program with our distinctive Cambridge Recycles sign in front of City Hall.
This is when Mayor Vellucci.
Al Vellucci was the mayor at the time.
This is so old, people didn't even have area codes back then.
That's right. That's right.
Look at that sign.
Now that image there actually came a little bit later. We'd already actually been running the drop-off for several months at that point, so it was advertising the fall dates. We actually began in June that year. The first month was relatively little action, but then it really kind of got wild. So let's see. So let's sort of scroll down a little bit more here and see what we do. So I'm just going to just want to point out a few of my favorite people on the planet here. This I think was our first month of the program. This was up at Sherman Street, or St. Peter, next to St. Peter's Field. It's actually the site where the big salt storage shed is now, right across next to the baseball diamond. And we had just these big containers, and we didn't generate a lot of volume in the first few months. You see this, my smiling friend next to the brown glass was Annette French. the following month, she would be running the site over at the DPW yard. And the woman with the white hat on the other side of the picture is Vicky Casana, who was really that really became the head honcho up at the Sherman Street site. So I put this image here in particular because those two women were really the people who were carrying a lot of the logistics of getting things happen.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so like I say, so we should scroll down here a little bit. We'll just sort of see here. Now, again, these are just some of the images of the early days. I don't remember the gentleman's name.
It's Phil Sego.
It looks like Phil Sego, and it
No.
may be Phil Sego, but I was wondering about that myself the other day. But the gentleman there, in the
Over
sort
here?
of the older gentleman in the background, he was very enthusiastic. I believe he worked with Public Works, but unfortunately he passed away very, very soon afterwards. So I was just sort of, and again, if anybody knows his name, I wouldn't mind hearing about that.
What year is this?
This was all in, I believe,
Look at that car.
June of 1989. So 25 years ago today. So let's scroll down a little bit more here. There's some particular characters here. Now, this one here is the one I like here because some of you today may know. In fact, I know at least one person who was until very recently a city councilor in Cambridge knows. This is John Reinhardt, who was up at the Sherman Street site, was one of our main men, as we say. Big John Reinhardt, who in more recent days is partnered up with Minka von Busekow. But even then, John was also, I think, head of the Mystic River Watershed Association. But again, these are the earliest
Look at this
pictures.
car.
Yeah, we had some old cars
Beautiful.
here. So anyway, let's scroll down a little bit more here. This was an image here that shows Doug. I think it's
Doug Dodds.
right?
Yeah.
And this is an image, and there were a few more of these ones in here. We worked up at that
This is a
site,
great picture.
and we did it in rain, snow, sleet, hail. This is an image here where the rain was pouring on us, and we were out there and we worked a full day nonetheless. So these are our troops.
Fantastic.
All right. And you may know some of these people.
Great, yeah,
as well,
absolutely.
yeah.
These are great
Now
shots.
here's a nice vintage shot of yours truly. Back when
What's it say on your button?
I think it just says my name. It just says Robert. I still have that hat, by the way, right? But in a driving rain where you simply couldn't get any wetter than I was
That's
at that point
fantastic.
here. And by the way, in the background, I think you may see it in some of the other images, you see Danahy Park under construction when it was just sort of a rock and stone and soil cap without any vegetation whatsoever, and it really looked like the moon up there. And we just sort of lived in its shadow. Now here's a couple of others.
Oh, wow.
This was when we were, I think, our first month. On the left is Sumner Martinson, and on the right, Vicky Casana. And as I said, Vicky was really the mainstay of sort of really running things up at the Sherman Street half of the operation. But Sumner, and this was one of those cases, it's really, in a way, quite typical of Cambridge, where no matter what's going on, we actually have professionals in Cambridge who are not only activists, but who actually work for state agencies and whatever can make things happen. Sumner Martinson, in those days, and to this day, worked in the State Department of Environmental Protection Division of Solid Waste Management. So he was like the recycling guy for, one of the main recycling guys promoting it for the state. But he also lived on Crawford Street, 2 blocks from our house. And he was one of our regulars. He was more than anything, I guess he directed traffic, actually, up because we had a lot of vehicles. And
Yeah.
in fact, let me just sort of throw in a few numbers. When we first started, it was really relatively small, but word of mouth spread, and before long, we had a lot of people were signing up as volunteers, and we had a veritable army of 489 volunteers. And each of our sites was gathering somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 vehicles every month when we
Wow.
would conduct this. So it became a big, big phenomenon. Now, this is one of my favorite people I've ever met in Cambridge. This was Peggy Biggs. Peggy Biggs and there'll be another image of Mary Vise were the two women who worked at the glass operation. Back then, it wasn't like you sent materials off to a facility where it was neatly sorted and prepped for market. There were no such things. So we actually had to prep everything. So when bottles
I like this work area here.
Oh, it was very primitive in the early days, let me tell you. But back then, we actually, if there was metal on the bottles, we had to clip it off. If there was lead bands on the wine bottles, we had to do that because if you didn't, the entire load of glass might be rejected. So we had to work, and it was actually pretty hazardous work, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But Peggy Biggs was the funniest, one of the most wonderful people to work with. I think the image right below is of Mary Vise. Mary's still around, and again, to me, when I was working the glass tables, these were my partners.
Yeah.
Of course, part of my job also was I got to be the glass walker. When we had to compact the glass, I got to jump up and crush down huge amounts of broken glass. It was.
These hats have become very popular again.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
We must tell Mary about this then.
That's a wonderful picture.
So let's scroll down. Here you see, this is, by the way, I think after 25 years, we have passed the statute of limitations for prosecution for open container laws here. But at the end of a long working day, here's a picture of Vicky Casana and Jane.
They're not drinking.
Well, that's right. They're not drinking. Ha ha. No, at the end of the day, we were known to maybe have a beer.
And then you'd recycle the bottle.
Of course. So actually, in the first month or so, we would just do it at the end of the day. We'd crack open a few cold ones, but.
That's a great picture.
Later on, Jane became the person who was instrumental in the drafting of the recycling ordinance today, and she is to this day. And I hate she's going to hate me for saying it. There she is with her, public drinking, but she's now the assistant. I said, what is it? The assistant. Oh gosh, I forgot the name now. But with Massachusetts, assistant clerk for the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, and a wonderful person. She's also married to Frank Duhay, I might add.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is just some images, and
Excellent.
you can see some of the construction of Danahy Park that was happening in the background.
Beautiful.
This really was sort of like a site filled with rubble. It was not the best working conditions. Now, some folks may know this handsome gentleman here. He was a folk singer at the time, and he's now the pastor at the Unitarian Church, I believe it is, in Harvard Square. This is now the Reverend Fred Small. But Fred was one of our regulars up at Sherman Street site, packing newspaper into the big boxes to get it ready for market. And I think
I'm assuming it's summer here, right?
This was a summer shot, but believe me, we all worked through all seasons here. So let's see, let's sort of move on down. And here's another picture of Big John Reinhardt. I think the gals would swoon over John in those days. But in the early days, that's what it like. This was what I call American Gothic shot of, me and Annette, pose in front of some of these ones right in here.
Beautiful.
But again, really soppy conditions.
Beautiful photo.
Right? And let's just sort of scroll down. Let's sort of exhaust a few of these images right in here. This is, again, just, you have to understand, when you're doing this sort of like, on the ground.
That's Natalie, right there.
Yeah. You can actually see in the background, there's my old Volkswagen bus. Doug. And let's see, I'm forgetting some of the names, but seated on the table is Laurie Siegel, Vicky Casana, there's Fred Small in the background. And I think, is that Rebecca Ramsey, I think, over on the right-hand side? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. My old VW bus was kind of identified in many ways with the program, because that was where we'd have all the refreshments. Yeah, so people would go there for their refreshments and things all during the day. So that's a picture of the whole gang.
That is a fabulous picture.
All right, and let's scroll down. I think I only have a couple more here. Let's see. Okay. This is Shepley Metcalf, Annette French, and Maura Smith. Maura worked for the manager's office in those days, helped us get the program started. There's Annette in the middle, who later ran
and they're drinking too. This is quite a group.
I know, we were really breaking the rules in the old days. By the way, in the later months, what we would do at the end of the day, because we would be just filthy because we worked so hard, we'd shower up and we'd all reconvene over at my house, and we'd then drink homebrew beer. So it was really a fun time. Shepley, by the way, I think I saw last summer singing in Harvard Square. She was doing like 1940s classic songs and things, and she was great. So,
Yeah, people notice back here, there's still youth soccer going
still
on.
youth
It's
soccer,
still-
never
it's
ends.
never ends.
Yeah,
There it is.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's go down a little bit more, and I think we just have one more shot over here.
Look at that.
This was Vicky and me back here, at the lunch wagon back in my home.
Showing the picture of you drenched there.
Yeah, actually, I'm holding the photos. I didn't even notice that right there. But that's the image right in there. So, anyway,
That
that's
was a great show.
so that's our little dog and pony show of some of the early days of Cambridge recycling. Actually, in the very last image, though you probably couldn't see it, I was wearing a button which I actually plucked out and found here. This was one that Vicky gave me because, though we worked together in
What's it
planning
say?
everything, I was still, part of my job was to be brute force.
That's
so,
great.
So she gave me a button that says, "I'm not real smart, but
Oops.
I can lift heavy things."
I'd show it to you, but
I wear it with
I don't
pride.
think we have that ability.
Right, we may not here. So, so anyway, many of the other things I was going to say we'll sort of carry over into another week here. But again, one of the things that you really come to appreciate
Oh,
when
the
you
Works
do
hat.
this is that the guys at Public Works, they actually gave me a hat back in those days to sort of work in, And the truth is it carried on. We even after the curbside recycling program was established, and that's a whole story. I can tell even more about how that came to be. But we carried on. I remained as the recycling hotline for at least another 5 years afterwards, taking calls from the public just to get the program going. We eventually started Cambridge Recycling Incorporated, selling home composters and whatever. And it's interesting because now, 25 years later, and maybe this is an appropriate thing to end on now, is that 25 years later, I think this April, exactly 25 years from when we started one program, they're actually beginning a pilot organics curbside collection in North Cambridge.
Very
this coming
fitting.
April. So, anyway, on that note,
This is Cambridge Inside.
out.